Today at Industry Tech Sales, we're going to talk about 70 volt 101. 70 volt is mostly used in commercial applications, but also large residential. We've had great success putting 70 volt into a lot of these larger homes where they want to have a single zone cover a large area. It's much more efficient when it comes to wiring and pre-wire. You only have to run one wire down to the amplifier, and then you can daisy chain one speaker to the next. Don't be afraid of 70 volt. 70 volt is super easy and a far more efficient way of running multiple speakers into one location. You can have a great time. You're not going to have a great time ever running wire. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier than home running every single speaker back to your amplifier. So I'll kind of draw this out. So if you have your amplifier down in the rack here, put a little amp here, and then you're going to run your positive and negative, your two conductor, to speaker one right here. Goes into speaker one, and then it daisy chains to the next speaker, and then to the next speaker. And you can add as many speakers as you want, as long as your wattage adds up. A 70 volt speaker has a tap on it. You can see this little dial, and what that does is it determines how much power is going to be drawn from your amplifier per speaker. This speaker can do 1.8 watts, 3.7 watts, 7.5 watts, 15 watts, and 30 watts. So generally, I like to start at 15 watts. This is a great place to start because if you have one area that's a little bit hot and you have another area that you want to dial that sound down, you can just take this and go down to 7.5. So if we have 10 speakers in one zone, and then let's not forget we want to have a speaker in the women's room, a speaker in the men's room. We don't want it too loud. So we're going to tap this to 15, 15, and so on. This is our watts per speaker. So this main area, we're going to have 15 speakers or 10 speakers tapped to 15 watts. That's 150 watts. And then in the bathroom, let's say 7.5 watts each. 5 watts, and then we do a 7.5 because we don't want it blasting. So this will be about half the volume that you would have in the main area, and then you have 7.5 watts in the bathrooms. So then we add those up. That puts us at 165 watts total. All right, my amplifier, single channel, I'm going to need at least 165 watts, but we want to have a little leeway in here. So what I would suggest is a 200 watt amplifier. And so this 200 watt amplifier will drive all of these speakers. It only is going to pull about 165 watts at max. This is a really safe tolerance. You don't even need a large gauge wire like you would with 8 ohm. You can really just run an 18-2 speaker wire, and it goes one to the other. Let's go to the next page, and I'll show you how we wire this. So you have your amp here. You have your positive and your negative. So you're going to do your two conductor to the speaker, and the speaker is going to have 4 terminals to it. And it might not always go in this way, but you'll have it go positive into here, negative into here, and then you're going to have your negative to the next speaker. This is speaker 2. And then you're going to have your positive. Does that make sense? It's actually incorrect. So you're going to want your what is called your pass-through, negative. So you're going to take your pass-through here, and that's going to go right into your next speaker, and so on. So then your negative here will go into your negative, and this guy go into here, and so on. All right, so that's the basics of 70 volt. Now let's see how we wire it. Most 70 volt speakers look like this. And in the back, you'll have a nice little Phoenix connector. You pull out this Phoenix connector, you'll see that you have a little guide here. This is the Electrovoice EVID 6.5, I believe. Don't know the exact model number, but I'll get that for you. So you have your loop through positive is number 1. Your positive in, positive out, and then your loop through negative, number 4. You can also tie them all together, but sometimes the manufacturer doesn't recommend that. So take your speaker wire, just a basic 18-2. Always pull this back in case you scored your wires, so you don't want to have them short out. Cut this baby up a little bit, and you strip it out. Oh, that's not going to work. Cut. Let's try this again. Here we go. 18 gauge wire. I line it up with the 18 gauge stranded. Give her a nice pull. I've got my 2 wires exposed, only about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. And what we do is we take our Phoenix connector, and because we're going into Number 2 is our positive, and number 3 is our negative. So I'm going to open up, make sure it's open all the way. When you're screwing open these terminals, you'll see a little piece of metal that kind of closes the garage there. So we want to open all these up. Bring this over here. Can you see how that? Perfect. So now by going by this little guide here, I've got 2 is my positive from the amplifier and negative or from the last speaker. So I take my positive and negative, put them in the 2 and 3, just like that. And then I'm going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to crank down these Phoenix connectors. Just enough to hold it in place. Make sure it's in there nice and tight. So this is great for your first speaker. Now, for your second speaker, you're going to do your loops, your loop through. So again, take this baby out. So again, cut this down to a manageable amount. Give her a twist. This is from the amplifier. The previous speaker goes into 2 and 3. And each speaker is different, so you'll want to look into it and see how it does. So now, number 1 is your positive loop through, and number 4 is your negative loop. Put those babies in there like that, nice and tight. Crank her down. So again, this goes to the next speaker. This came from the previous speaker. So that is how you daisy chain a 70-volt speaker. And then you take the Phoenix connector. Oftentimes you'll run it through here, or if you have conduit or MC, plug this baby in, close the door, you're good to go. So remember, every time that you put in a 70-volt speaker, you want to make sure that your tap setting is set to whatever you've allocated for that specific speaker. The more watts, the more sound, the louder it is. That's it. 70-volt speakers come in many different form factors and brands. Here are a list of our 70-volt amplifiers. For more information on 70-volt speakers or amplifiers, contact your salesperson at Industry Tech Sales 952-474-1978 or email sales@industrytechsales.com.